You know, there have been lots of instances recently where we have seen farmers protesting in various states. They marched up to Delhi. We have seen a long march in Maharashtra very recently. There have been instances also where the farmers have thrown their produce on the road. We have seen commodity prices trade way below the minimum support price. And while, of course, a lot has been talked, the government also is looking at doubling farmers' income by 2022. There has been a significant rise on MSP. And while, of course, remuneration is important, but there are so many other factors which also demand or desire equal attention. Exploitation by the middlemen. You also have diversity in sense of regulators and political environment. There is then again water, there is credit solutions, there is packaging, credit facility, crop insurance. There are various areas where the discussion is on, and as we await for a formal policy into this one, we have our esteemed panel who would dwell into this and of course talk from their experiences as well. Mrs. Ahluwalia, let me start with you first. What is your sense on the MSP? Because that really seems to be most talked about when we talk about the agri-crisis right now. We understand there is 300 million tons to be procured. 200 out of that is perhaps just rice and wheat. 50 tons is perhaps millets and oilseed, where there is not much concern. The remaining 40 tons is where we are looking at an MSP increase. And out of that also, perhaps 15 tons is where we will actually see one of those MSP being put in. Apart from that, what other areas are we looking at?
Lots of numbers that you've reeled off. Huh? Basically, the last 2 years, we've had actual prices of farm commodities which have gone below the minimum support price. So there is no question that the farmers are in distress, and there is talk of raising the minimum support price. But we must recognize that minimum support price is a relief measure, and only a relief measure. The sustainable solution lies in improving the productivity of our agriculture, right? Now, also, very often when we hear of the minimum support price, we think that at that price, government is ready to buy all the surpluses in the market. Actually, that is not the case. It is meant to be an indicative price. And we do not have markets that are developed. So for the last many years, we have about 20 plus commodities for which MSPs are declared every year. And they are basically supposed to be indicative prices which influence the market, but don't clearly solve the problem. I think that's the first thing I would say. So now, should the government step in and purchase items which it does not need for procurement? We know that the government buys wheat and paddy for procurement for our public distribution system. Should it be doing that for vegetables, maize, a whole lot of other commodities? What is the cost involved in doing that? And is the government, does it have the fiscal space to incur that cost? The next question is, there is controversy on how you determine the minimum support price. Do you cover the paid up costs and imputed value of labor alone? Or do you also include the owned capital and owned land? So let's not get into those, but basically to say that it's only a relief measure. So what are the sustainable solutions to address the challenges of agriculture? We need investment in agricultural infrastructure. We need investments in roads, in logistics, in refrigeration so that our perishables can be protected. We need to cut subsidies which are unproductive subsidies, like the huge subsidy on urea. not only does it not contribute very much to improving productivity, it actually, let's say, diminishes the quality of soil. So one is the subsidy on fertilizers should be reduced. We need to check our policy of free electricity to farmers, which encourages pumping of groundwater. And today in India, despite all the investments we have made in irrigation, 80% of the water that farmers use come from groundwater, because groundwater is not regulated. And you have water-intensive crops being actually cultivated in dry areas. So we need to check these things. Finally, I would say one other factor. As farmers diversify out of the safe realm of wheat and paddy, where government is standing there to buy all that you have to offer in major mandis, as you diversify, you bear the risk both of nature and of the markets. So you need insurance. Now, we have seen good steps being taken. I think this crop insurance scheme that the government has announced is a very good step, but what is its implementation? 45% of the premium is to be paid by the government of India, another 45% by the state government, and 10% by the farmer. And when you go and talk to farmers, after 2016-17 in UP, some of our researchers at ICRIER, which is the institute which I come from, they talked to the companies, and they said that we have not received the premium either from the government of India or the state government. So the farmers were not compensated for more than 6 months. So, when you live in that kind of vulnerable situation, just saying insurance or just saying ENAM and that we are going to connect the markets are not a software package alone. We need institutional reforms. We need to abolish the APMC Act. And I agree in that the center can only play the strategic role of nudging the state governments to do the right thing. But they are the ones who have to do that. So I think problems facing our agriculture are very complex. We need a holistic solution, as we were able to do in the case of milk. That holistic solution has not emerged so far. Again, when I say holistic, you also need to have your trade policy and your MSPs integrated. You can't say today there'll be an export ban and tomorrow now you export. That doesn't happen. So you need to develop sophisticated markets. We are talking, one part of the government says the exports will increase to $100 billion. Another part of the government says $60 billion. Actually, exports have declined. Between 2004 and 2014, there was a major increase, going up to 38 billion. It's now declined to 32, 33 billion. So we must have our feet on the ground. We must dream high. I approve of dreaming high, but we must back that up with serious effort, connected effort to deliver the results.
Well, absolutely. You've actually covered a lot of concerns, problems that we are facing into this field right now. But as Mrs. Ahluwalia kept saying, Mr. Sodhi, it really is a lot of learning that this sector can take from dairy, because you have been able to, or AMUL really has been able to make quite an example out of it. We haven't seen farm loan waivers come in here. We haven't seen trade policies which go back and forth in this sector. Of course, you've been asking the government to give you much more, but with the limited stuff that you've had, there is a lot of learning from this sector.
Thank you, Manisha. Well, I think before talking about animal husbandry or dairy sector, I'd like to give my comments on the MSP thing. And being an employee of farmers for the last 36 years, so I'll be biased more towards rural India and then the urban India, which has been mostly happening with the policy makers. So India got independence in 1947. Our GDP was 20 billion and 2/3 was coming from agriculture. And average household income of urban household was slightly more than the rural household. Now what is the situation today? Today our GDP is 2.33 trillion and only 17% is contributed by agriculture, but 53% people are dependent on agriculture. So average household income in the rural India is $500 per annum and urban India is $3,000, 1:6. And this disparity between Bharat and India is growing day by day. What is the reason? Because in India we want cheap food. We want cheap vegetables, low price oil, low price milk, everything. And we feel that because India, a lot of people are below the poverty line, so they should get the cheap food. But I think when we go for PDS and whatever trade policies, Mrs. Ahluwalia mentioned, to import cheap products, so the price is not, it is basically subsidizing industry. Because if food is expensive, wages have to go up. And we want to keep food cheaper, so the wages are lower, so industry is prosperous. So that is the main reason. Now coming to the, what is the contribution dairy can do? If you see average income of a farmer in India is around 6,400 per month. Out of that, 48% comes from cultivation and it is growing at a rate of 3.5%. But 12% comes from animal husbandry, but growing at the rate of 14% per annum. Now, if you want to double the farmer income, it is not possible by MSP. You need 10.5% growth every annum if you want to double the farmer's income. And that is not possible in cultivation. So animal husbandry is one area where, and also in animal husbandry, you people who do not have land, I mean, I take example of AMUL, where 3.6 million farmer members are there. 80% farmers are landless or marginal farmers. So they will not get the benefit of any fertilizer subsidy or seed subsidies or loan waiver because they are not cultivating much. So if you have to double the average farmer's income, you have to take care of the 80% landless and marginal farmers, and that is only possible through animal husbandry or other activities. I mean, people say, let us go to rural India, provide them rural industrial outputs. And if you see the data, growth of industry output is more in rural India than the urban India, but employment has reduced. Why? Whatever industry has gone to the rural India, skills are not available there. So now, coming to dairy or animal husbandry, why India has become not only self-sufficient in dairy, but world's largest producer? Because 70 years back, we did an experiment where farmers are not only producing, where earlier farmers were just producing meat, farmers are controlling, processing and marketing themselves. And 80% of what consumer pay in Delhi, Bombay goes back to the farmer. So that is a solution in other agriculture crop also. If you want the farmers get really good price for their produce, very stable and remunerative, they should not only and only controlling production or only the inputs or one part of the supply. If they control the whole supply chain under their own ownership, then only they'll get the maximum.